Zuri, it is Jabari. Can we meet? There's so much to say. Her heart leapt to her throat. With trembling fingers, she typed out the response. Tomorrow, 4 p.m., the coffee shop on Kimati Street. The next day, Zuri arrived at the cafe early, her nerves on the edge. When Jabari walked in, heads turned. He was in every inch a successful and handsome businessman. But Zuri could see the uncertainty in his eyes as he approached the table. Zuri, he breathed, sitting down across from her. I don't even know where to begin. Zuri offered a smile. Maybe at the beginning. What happened after school, Jabari? And so, over steaming cups of coffee, they began to unravel the years that separated them. Jabari said, you mean a lot to me more than you think. He spoke of his attempts to contact her and the letters that never reached her village. Zuri also told him of her life in Quito, her struggles, her marriage, and the tragic loss of her husband. As they talked, the years seemed to melt away. They laughed over shared memories and mourned the times they had lost. But beneath it all, an undeniable current of attraction and unresolved feeling simmered. Zuri, Jabari said softly, I never stopped thinking about you. Even when I was married, and even now, you were always there in my mind. They looked deep into each other's eyes and smiled. Later that day, as Zuri tucked her children into bed, Jabari's words echoed in her mind. Give us a chance, he had said. But what did that mean? Zuri couldn't help noticing the lingering glances Jabari always cast her way whenever he was around, or the way her heart raced when they were in the same room. One evening, as Zuri was walking late in the study, Jabari entered. After a long day at the office, you are walking too hard again, he said softly, coming to stand beside her. Zuri looked up, suddenly aware of how close he was. I want to do right by the children, she replied. Jabari's eyes softened. You are doing more than right by them. You are giving them what I couldn't even afford to give them: stability, love, and the attention they need. Away from the children, Zuri, can we go on a dinner date together? Zuri smiled, but before she could respond, a knock interrupted the moment. As weeks turned into months at the mansion, Zuri settled into a comfortable rhythm. Eventually, they went on a dinner date. She was nervous as she dressed up that night. Her son asked her if she was going out. You look beautiful, mommy. Are you going on a date with Mr. Jabari? Yes, she said. And the boy smiled happily. Jabari sent a driver to pick her up, and all the other staff watched and whispered as she got into the car. She looked so beautiful in the gown Jabari had sent to her earlier the day. As they sat wined and dined by the poolside, they talked about past memories, about friends, and about rumors they heard. Then they danced together to one of their old favorite music. While they danced, Jabari asked if she remembered the promise he had made to her under the ancient tree. She smiled and answered, how can I forget? And he kissed her forehead. Days later, Zuri was overseeing a science experiment to the children in the garden. A sleek car pulled up the driveway, and an elegant woman emerged. Mama! Zaki cried out, running towards the woman. Zuri's heart sank as she realized this must be Jabari's ex-wife, Amani. Amani's eyes narrowed as they fell on Zuri. So, she said coldly, you must be the new teacher. The way she said teacher made it sound like an insult. Zuri straightened her spine, determined not to be intimidated. Yes, I am Zuri Kimani. It is nice to meet you. I know who you are, dear. You were his first love, who you never forgot. And I read all the letters. I guess swept over Zuri, taking in a simple dress, and something dangerous flashed in her eyes. Children, go inside and wash up, Amani commanded. As they left, she turned back to Zuri. I don't know what gave you a plane, But let me make one thing clear. These are my children, and Jabari is still my husband in all the ways that matter. Don't get too comfortable here. Before Zuri could respond, Amani stalked off towards the house, leaving Zuri shaking and confused. What did she mean? Jabari was still her husband in all the ways that matter. That evening, as Zuri sat in the library, she heard voices raised from Jabari's private living room. You have no right to come here and upset the children, Jabari shouted, its voice high and tight with anger. I have every right, Amani shouted back. I am their mother, and I have the right to know who you have living in this house and taking care of my children. Zuri is the children's teacher, nothing more, and she's doing an excellent job. What you could not even do. Amani smiled and answered, I was never unwilling not to take care of my children. And Jabari said, but I was never unfaithful to you. Jabari snapped back. There was a pause. Then Amani's voice came softer but not less dangerous. Oh, Jabari, don't tell me you've forgotten our little arrangement, the prenup, the conditions of our divorce. That's enough. Amani, Jabari said softly. We shall discuss this some other time. Zuri tried to take her mind off the drama. She had thought she understood her place here. She thought she knew where she stood with Jabari, but now doubt crept in like a poisonous vine, threatening to choke the fragile hope she had allowed to grow. As she lay in bed that night, sleep eluding her, Zuri realized that the past was not far behind them as she had thought. The following day, as Zuri was walking in the library again, Jabari entered and sat next to her. When Amani and I were married, our families were business partners, he began, and they insisted on the prenup with unusual terms. What kind of terms? We asked, dreading the answer. If we divorced, neither of us could remarry or enter a serious relationship until after 5 years. Jabari admitted, shame in his voice. If we do, we lose rights to all property acquired during the marriage. It was meant to discourage divorce and give us room for reconciliation in case of a separation. It has only been 4 years and 6 months, Jabari said. The implication hung heavily in the air. Even if they wanted to explore their feelings, they couldn't, not without risking everything. Zuri stood up accurately, needing space to process the information. I think I need some air, she said, and fled to the garden. How could she stay now knowing what she now knew? As she stood there, lost in thought, a small hand slipped into hers. She looked down to see Jabari's youngest, Zaki, looking up at her with wild, innocent eyes. Miss Zuri, you look sad. Are you sad? No, sweetheart, I'm just thinking. Daddy thinks a lot too. And I think my dad likes you, Miss Zuri. Before Zuri could respond, Zaki had drawn off, leaving her even more conflicted than before. Days passed, and Zuri threw herself into work with renewed rigor, determined to maintain professional boundaries. But she couldn't ignore the longing glances from Jabari or the way her own heart ached for what could have been. Then her daughter asked her one day, Mama, do you love Mr. Jabari? Zuri froze, caught off guard by a direct question. Imani, it is complicated, but it makes you smile. And you make him smile too. I've noticed the glances. Isn't that what love is, Mama? Zuri smiled and thought, only if it was that simple. Then on a stormy night, everything came to a head. The power had gone out, and Zuri was walking the library when she heard Jabari come into the library. He came closer to her, helping her up. And the flash of lightning, their eyes met for a moment. The world fell away, and there were just Zuri and Jabari, two hearts beating as one. Zuri, Jabari whispered, his voice husky with emotion. I can't do this anymore. I can't pretend I don't have feelings for you. Their lips met in a passionate kiss, years of longing and suppressed feelings pouring out. For a blissful moment, everything felt right. And suddenly, they saw the flashing of a camera light, snapping them. They looked and saw Amani smiling. They didn't even notice when she entered. The silence that followed Amani's dramatic exit was deafening. Zuri and Jabari stood frozen, the gravity of what just happened slowly sinking in. The kiss they had shared, a moment of weakness, longing now to threaten and to destroy everything. Jabari was the first to break the silence. Zuri, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have done that. No, Zuri interrupted. We are both responsible. I'm also an adult. But Jabari, what are we going to do? Amani saw us. She has a picture and she will use this against you. I will handle Amani. But Zuri, I think it's best if you and the children could live for a while, just until I could sort things out. The what hit Zuri like a physical blow. Leave? After everything? But her mind knew it was the most sensible thing to do. She nodded slowly, fighting back, says, You're right. I have a smaller house somewhere, Jabari said. Please stay there for the time being. And I promise to fight for our love. I don't want you in the middle of this mess. Zuri hugged Jabari as she cried. The next morning was a blur of hushed packing and tearful goodbyes. Zuri tried to explain to her children why they had to leave their new home so suddenly. Jabari's children watched with confusion and sadness showing in their eyes. Jabari appeared at the hallway. His eyes were red, evidence of a sleepless night. Zuri, he began. I promise I'll fix this. Just give me time. He hugged her passionately. I promise not to lose you again. You mean more than you ever know. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest of Zuri's life. She really missed Jabari. Meanwhile, a media frenzy surrounded Jabari and his complaint. Amani had made a good on her threat. She had tried to manipulate the prenup but couldn't prove Jabari was in any relationship. So she forged and leaked documents to the press that seemed to implicate Jabari in financial misconduct. Zuri watched from far, her heart aching for Jabari and his children. She wanted desperately to reach out, offer support, but she knew any contact would only fuel Amani's accusation. One rainy evening, as Zuri was returning home, she found an unmarked envelope slipped under her gate. Inside was a brief note in the familiar handwriting. Z, I am fighting this with everything I have. Truth will eventually come out. Please don't give up on us. He sent some cash and gifts. As the scandal surrounding Jabari's complaint intensified, Zuri was watching TV one day when the breaking news alerted flashed across the screen in the living room. Jabari's face filled the screen, looking determined as he stood before a sea of reporters. I stand before you today to address the allegations that had been made against me and my complaint, it began. I want to state that these accusations are false and are a result of a personal vendetta orchestrated by someone who seeks to destroy not just me, but the livelihoods of thousands of employees who depend on this complaint. It continued, laying out evidence that not only exonerated him, but implicated Amani in a complex scheme of fraud. He revealed recordings, emails, and financial misconduct that painted a damning picture of his ex-wife's action. After the press conference concluded, the room erupted into a frenzy of questions and camera flashes. Immediately, Zuri's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It is over. Can we talk? Her heart raised happily as she typed out a response. Tomorrow, the same coffee shop. The next day, as Zuri sat nervously at the corner, waiting for Jabari. Jabari entered, smiling. I can't tell you how good and happy I am to see you. I saw the press conference, Zuri said, and I'm so happy everything is over. Then Jabari paused. Zuri, I'm truly free and I belong to you. Zuri's heart soared at his word, but a flicker of doubt still nagged at her. Jabari held her and Zuri, these past weeks have shown me what love truly means. My children adore you. You brought light and love back into our home. I don't want to spend another day without you by my side. Tears welled up in Zuri's eyes as the full impact of his words hit her. After all these years apart, all the obstacles that they had faced, they now truly had a chance at happiness. Zuri looked into Jabari's eyes, seeing the love and hope and the promise of a future she had only once dreamed of. In that moment, she made her decision. Yes, she whispered, a smile breaking through her tears. Yes, Jabari, let's face it together. As they left the cafe hand in hand, stepping out into the bustling street of Nairobi, Zuri felt a sense of peace wash over her. 6 months after, Jabari surprised Zuri with a candlelight dinner in the garden. After they finished eating, he got on one knee, presenting a ring. Zuri began. You have been my first love, my lost love, and now my forever love. Will you marry me? Tears of joy streamed down Zuri's face as she nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. As Jabari slipped the ring onto her finger, tears erupted from the house. They looked up to see the children and the staff watching from the balcony, their faces alight with happiness. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.